Alright, so here we are. I am making this recording to help some. Actually, I only had a couple of kids that weren't at school today, but this is kind of important. We don't really have a book that shows you how to do it. So you can pause the recording if I seem like I'm going too fast. So I'm going to show you no solution and infinite solutions with system of equations. So no solution. It ends with no variables and an untrue statement. So let me show you what I'm talking about by that. So if I'm going to try to eliminate my x's, okay? So I have 4x, that means I need this to be a negative 4x. So I'm going to multiply this entire second equation by a negative 2. So I've got negative 2 times 2x, and that's going to give me a negative 4x. And then a negative 2 times y, and that's going to give me a negative 2y. And then a negative 2 times a positive 4 is a negative 8. So now I'm going to bring my first equation down to be with my second equation, just so that I can combine this stuff easily. So we have a 4x plus 2y equals negative 4. Alright, so now that I've got my stuff lined up, I can start combining these two equations. Alright, so a negative 4x and a positive 4x, they eliminate each other. And a negative 2y and a positive 2y, they're also going to eliminate each other because they're opposites. So on the left side of my equation, I've got nothing. I've got 0. And a negative 8 and a negative 4 is going to give me a negative 12. So I am completely done with this. You notice that all my variables were eliminated, and that's what happens. That's part of what happens with no solution. See, look, no variables, and I don't have any variables here. Also, untrue statement, okay? Does 0 equal negative 12? Well, no, 0 does not equal negative 12. So this right here is an untrue statement. So the way we would label this is no solution, okay? So what this basically means is there is no numbers in the world that I could put in for x and for y to balance out both of these equations at the same time. If I was to graph that, and that's what we did in class, I'm just going to sketch the graph. I recommend anyone watching this to graph the first equation and then graph the second equation on graph paper. But when you do that, you're going to get something that looks like this. One line is going to be heading down this way, and the other one's going to be heading down this way. And it makes parallel lines. They never intersect. So that's why this is no solution, because a solution to a system of equations is where the two lines do intersect. But in this case, they never intersect. So that's why, it's another reason why it's considered a no solution. There is no way to balance out these equations at the same time. Okay, so here's the key things. If both variables get eliminated and you have an untrue statement at the very end, 0 equals negative 12, well then that means it is no solution. Alright, so now let's look at the flip side of that. Flip side is infinite solution. Again, you end with no variables, but you're going to have a true statement at the very end. So let's see what that looks like. I've got a new example problem, and this is, even though it looks the same, it is slightly different. I've changed a little something on here. But I want to try to eliminate my x's, so I'm going to multiply the entire second equation by negative 2. A negative 2 times 2x is a negative 4x. A negative 2 times a y is a negative 2y. And a negative 2 times a negative 2 is going to be a positive 4. So I'm going to bring this first equation down, write it with my second equation, just so everything's lined up nicely. So we have positive 4x, positive 2y, and a negative 4. And I'm going to combine these equations. A negative 4x and a positive 4x, they cancel out because they're opposites. A negative 2y and a positive 2y, they cancel out, they're opposites. So far I've got nothing, or a 0 on the left side. A positive 4 and a negative 4, they equal 0. Okay, they're also opposites. So at the very end, I've got no variables. See, there's not any variables at the end. and I have a true statement. 0 does equal 0. So in this case, you would label this as infinite solutions. Alright, so then in class what I had the kids do is I had them graph both equations on the same graph, and then you have to put them in slope-intercept form in order to graph them. And whenever you do that, you get, I believe that both lines look kind of like that, and they actually fall perfectly on each other. They intersect unlimited amount of time, so they're like constantly intersecting with each other. So that's why it's infinite solutions. No matter what number you pick, you could put anything in for x and anything for y, and it's always going to balance out both equations. So that's it. That is no solution and infinite solutions.